Holy nuclear yeah! God, I already fucked that up. Holy nuclear nepotism, Batman! Tiki here, and I have just finished watching Batman Beyond Season 1 for the first time. At least I didn't fuck that up. Dragon, tell him why we're here.
Well, you see, folks, long ago, I made a vow to educate Tiki in the ways of Batman the Animated Series. Not pronunciation, apparently, but Batman the Animated Series, serving as his spirit guide to Gotham in a way. But that was the past, and we must now enter the Batman's future.
And tonight, we are talking Ascension. That's right, Dragon. We're ascending to the next level, to the new season. And I gotta say, man, this was a treat. Specifically because correct me if I'm wrong, but this feels like the first time that, at least in the stuff that we've covered, like I'm not sure if Justice League ever did this, but I really like the season finale quality to this, where it feels like we're wrapping up a bunch of threads from the first season. Terry is definitely I feel like this episode is definitely like a kind of a stepping stone towards, a more proper Batman. We're definitely getting some Batman signatures from him. He definitely seems like he's coming into his own. And we're getting some setup, not just the obvious Blight setup at the end, but also I feel like this episode is kind of setting the stage for some really interesting kind of continued character development between Terry and Bruce and their dynamic with each other, especially kind of Terry's more radical actions that we don't really explore the ramifications of in this episode, but I'm kind of hoping that it's kind of going to kind of lead the way for a more kind of complex story arc for Bruce and Terry down the line. I don't know. But suffice to say, Dragon, I'm not sure if I would call this the best episode of season 1, but it's up there, and I was very satisfied with it.
All right, yeah. So, let me give you a little context on this one. So this was directed by Yukio Suzuki, who also did, I believe, it's kind of like I keep forgetting if Yukio Suzuki was like an overseas animator who then was able to direct on Batman Beyond. I believe that's how it went, but I could be wrong. But Yukio only did one other episode, I believe. The minimum Batman Beyond, but I think maybe for the whole of the DCAU, unclear, but did The Winning Edge, which you liked.
I did like that, yeah.
So that was Yukio. So like the only 2 episodes, either of the entire DCAU or of Batman Beyond, that Yukio did. The writer on this was the great Bob Goodman, who's one of the signature writers of Batman Beyond. The guy worked on episodes that kind of was kind of a little dipping a toe into the future Batman stuff with Legends of the Dark Knight from the new Batman Adventures, and one of the great episodes of Batman Beyond so far, Blackout, the big ink introduction episode. That was Goodman. You know how you can tell? Because it was good, man.
Oh God.
So studio worked on this big surprise. Coco, little splash of Don Yang on the side, like a little Splenda packet for your tea. So, yes, you're right. So this is a season finale. So I think the big thing you were kind of circling there is that, this because they were in production at the same time, I believe, because at least in the development phase, they had like 3 shows on at the same time. You had Superman the Animated Series, the new Batman Adventures, and the first season of Batman Beyond. So at some point in time, there's a Venn diagram where all 3 of them intersect in terms of being in production at the same time. Now, so second to Superman the Animated Series, potentially, either this was like right before it or at the same time. The only shows in the DCAU that before pre-Justice League that ever got season finales.
Mm-hmm.
This was a really new idea for the time, and the reason why is because networks, it's part of the syndication thing. They have to syndicate these shows.
Sure.
They're already battling. I have a sense the networks did not like 2-parters. Like the only reason networks like 2-parters is that if you had like a block of television, it would play really well. It's like, hey, tonight on Batman, the 2 episodes they're going to play tonight, it's a 2-parter. It's the only reason they like those 2-parters.
Yeah, and then I feel like kind of The Last Airbender pretty much changed the game on that, right? Like that was the first show that was really like, okay, this is going to be all continuity all the time. And if you don't like it, then too bad. We're just going to play The Great Divide over and over again.
Well, that's true. You know, it's true, but it's kind of like a weird thing of how networks, particularly kind of like kids networks, in a sense, really went about things then versus now, or at least I guess then versus then, but later then in our case. Yeah, just it's the idea that back then networks were very much kind of beholden. Well, basically, animation series were kind of beholden to the networks, where Nickelodeon was very much all under one banner. Essentially, it's like, oh yeah, we can control what program we're gonna air. We essentially have a lot more autonomy over that sort of thing. Again, how they treated their showrunners is another matter entirely, but just the fact in terms of how we put the episodes out. But yeah, so yeah, you'll notice though in this episode, compared to Superman the Animated Series, essentially only the last two. Yeah, I think it was a two-parter. Actually, don't even quote me on that. I think it was a two-parter, but I'd have to check. Whatever the last episode of Superman the Animated Series season 3 was. That episode, again, being the last of the entire series, essentially serves as a finale ending, because it's like a huge event that has been kind of built to, and it was mainly an event. Where this is kind of played in which it walks the line of paying off a running story, which is the first time they've ever really attempted that in a Batman series. Which again, they've only started this sort of thing with Superman, the third season. Like, okay, we've introduced Darkseid, we're going to do a whole Darkseid season, so he's going to pop up, and it's going to build to something pretty bad.
Right.
And here we've kind of done that with Derek Powers, where he's been in the background, kind of Norman Osborning, kind of a lot of the foes we have here. So he's not been in every episode, but he's been very prominent. He's been very much set up. He's in the pilot. He's in the last episode, and we have closure to that story. So they played it in a way where it could be a standalone Blight story, but by the same token, does not necessarily have to be. You have to have seen all this Blight stuff to get this episode,
But like I said, it's not just the Blight stuff. It's more so like Terry really feels like it's an interesting combination of Terry coming into his own, but then there's also, with the revenge element of it kind of coming into it, new challenges for him to face. So I really like that kind of dichotomy that we have going on in this episode, where it's almost kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, I guess the big headline here is that we're starting to take chances in the DCAU with stuff like this. We're like, Batman series again never really was able to. They obviously, you had stuff like Harvey Dent and the Two-Face story, but again, it was very in the background. You couldn't deviate a lot of focus to it. We're here again. We're seeing the progressions. We're seeing the build. So season 1, honestly, more than I'd say the rest of Batman Beyond, I think has this. That's kind of the distinction it has, where there is, you can kind of, when looking back on it, there is a progression, there is an arc.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So all that said, let's dive right into it.
All righty.
Okay. So at this point, because Batman, again, so with the progression here, Derek Powers has been foiled so often by Batman, he's gotten desperate. And I always loved this idea that was always kind of like a headcanon thing in Batman the Animated Series for me, is that every time Batman took down the mob or had a victory against the mob, each progressive or these businessmen like Roland Daggett, you have to imagine a lot of their money and empire has gone to legal fees and stuff to get them out of prison or out of Dodge to do their next crime. So I like the idea that Derek Powers, at this point, all these people that he's thrown at Batman's way and he's beaten, he's got to do his own dirty work because he's desperate at this point.
I also love that at this point, his design is basically Skeletor in a business suit.
Oh, yeah.
Glowy Skeletor in a business suit.
Yeah, that's full-on blood. He's always looked like that. Combination of Skeletor meets Dr. Phosphorus. That's the idea.
But I love that it took the full season to really get to that final form.
Well, sure. At the very least, when he's just walking around like that, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Just like walking around casually, everyone is acknowledging him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you look at it, we only saw him, we saw this form for the first time in the 3rd act of Meltdown.
Right, but like I said, this is like the new status quo at this point now.
So you're right. Yes. So anyway. So Blight's doing his own dirty work. Essentially, he's because of Batman, he's stealing polymer. Now, essentially, what he's stealing is the chemical materials that make his skin suit, so he can go around being Derek Powers. The idea is he's running low from. It's going to start drawing eyes like, why is he buying all this skin stuff? It's cutting into company profits. What are you building for him next? A rocket ship? That sort of stuff.
Right.
So he's basically broken into a Plastech.
He's just really into stem cell research, Dragon.
Yep. Anyway, there's like blasting the alarm, and they have this really good line. But again, Blight. Here's the thing: we don't spend a lot of time. T, I'm going to tell you this. This is the last time we're going to see Blight because they did play it ambiguous, and in comics they've kind of brought him back. But again, really,
that's genuinely surprising.
I know, yeah, it's the thing. There's always the temptation of they always mention it like he was going to come back, but they never did, and because Batman Beyond doesn't quite at least get a conventional ending in the 3 initial seasons, it is kind of a question if they would have brought him back in a 4th season. But, regardless. Yeah, so it's kind of nice to see like what Blight is like as a supervillain now that he's.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good finale, but I'm not going to lie, that is disappointing though, because I have been really liking this kind of this build up to him.
Yeah, again, I could point you to like the Blight did they did find a way to bring him back somewhat in continuity.
I don't care about the comics. I know that sounds harsh. It's not that I don't care about the comics, but it's like I don't know, shit. I was looking forward to tracking the character.
That's true, but think of the challenge, though. And you're always saying, like, sometimes we need send-offs for these characters.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
Do we do anything more with his son?
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's good.
We do some stuff with Paxton. I can't say we're going to see a lot of him though, but he will come back, and it will be fun when he comes back.
All right.
Anyway, so
I'll take that at least.
Don't expect like a regular thing with him. Though.
Sure.
He comes back,
at the very least, there's going to be some follow up to this episode.
Let me put it this way: think of Paxton Powers as kind of evil Howard Hamlin to a degree.
Oh my God! I mean, he totally does have that Howard Hamlin energy, though.
There's a good reason for that. Once we get
just give Howard Hamlin a brown wig, and you're good to go. Just dye his hair brown.
We're jumping ahead, but we'll get there. Okay, point being, he has this great Blight line, like for this character, is like he warns everyone, best to keep your hands to yourselves so I can get out of your hair as fast as possible, basically. So
I really like how at this point, like even though he is clearly struggling, he's owning it though. Like outwardly, he's owning it.
I mean, the cool thing about Powers here is the fact that he is like a hoity-toity businessman who's doing his own dirty work and basically owning the power that he's amassed materially,
right.
physically. So he's kind of acting like a crime boss, which he's never really had to do before, and he's kind of come up. You get a sense he's having fun with it to a degree. The whole believe me, the sooner I'm out of your hair, the better, because he's radioactive. So the longer he's there, the more risk he's giving all these people terminal diseases for all they know. All right. So Batman enters. We have some cool fight action here. He's like crashing a hovering forklift. Pretty cool. Little nod to the pilot and the origin of Blight. It's a little subtle. I like the idea that they're fighting in kind of a warehouse-esque kind of like loading dock area. And remember
it is a Batman show, so like we're gonna be fighting in warehouses.
Well, technically a loading dock, but yes.
Right.
That's the thing. I love that it's like kind of an homage to the origin of Blight, which is kind of, again, that's kind of a theme of the episode, though, about Terry kind of taking ownership in a Batman 89 way over his role in things. So
yeah. There's a scene there that we'll get to. I honestly think they could have dwelled on it a little bit longer than they did, but we'll get to it.
But still, it's just kind of nice that we're subtly also kind of like saying something too, like it's kind of back to the nerve gas thing, where Blight's like blasting these canisters and like causing like a big old explosion. Batman saves the workers. Blight escapes in the chaos without the materials that he needs, and uses like a cool fire extinguishing chemical bomb.
It's a really cool gadget. Cool gadget.
It is. Absolutely, because again, the belt doesn't carry as much as it used to. Like, at the very least, all the stuff that it carries is minimized more so. So that's really cool. Anyway. So, let's see. And then he finds one of Powers' goons, and he learns that the Powers' goons are basically off-the-clock Wayne Powers security guys. Powers is helping Blight. Or Blight, sorry. Yeah, Blight's helping Powers. Bum, bum, bum. All right. So, we see that Blight's consulting is that Blight's never nice with these doctors. These poor guys, you ever track like all the time, all these doctors scenes, he's always yelling at him, he's always tossing. He tosses this one poor guy around like a rag doll. Like, dude, I love like I have like that little connected tubing up to like, I guess, an air pump somewhere. It's like tosses like And it's like basically, so the idea is that they're going to run out of materials soon. And he's asking, like, if we just stick with the legal, the legit procurement of the chemicals we need for the skin suit, how much time do I have? 2 weeks, maybe less. meaning he can't hide under the skin suit, and it's what's cutting down on his time is not just the radiation, but his temper flaring up said radiation.
I like that. That's kind of almost like a Hades logic.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, there's a lot of great. I want to highlight. Okay, so I meant to mention this too in the preamble. I think this episode's very underrated. I always have been. I always thought everyone's mentioning the great Batman Beyond episodes. Everyone always forgets to support Ascension because there's a lot of good Batman Beyond episodes, as you probably guessed. So I don't know.
Like I said, Dragon, I don't know if this is like my number one so far, but it's definitely up there.
That's what I'm saying. So this one, believe it or not, that always gets glazed over.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of good subtlety in the acting this episode too, where Sherman Howard, where he says, I know, Doctor, I know. I just love it. He does lose his temper and he kind of reins it. He gets a little. At the very least, you understand the plight of Blight. Blight's plight. Anyway, so point being, I need to make new arrangements. So then we go outside of Gotham, outside of Neo Gotham. We go to Verdeza.
This just feels like something that Howard Hamlin would fucking find himself in.
Well, again, Howard Hamlin, a far better businessman, but sure.
But a very unlucky businessman.
There you go. Okay. So, we basically see the Wayne Powers branch in basically kind of like the DCAU's version of I guess kind of a Hispanic country of some kind. It's a made-up country. It's like Casnia. So basically, we have all these protesters outside because to cut costs and do kind of like shady business stuff. Paxton Powers, who we meet, Paxton Powers has basically polluted the rivers of basically a fishing town in Verdeza. And now Paxton Powers is voiced by Carrie Elways, Princess Bride, the liar, Carrie Elways.
I feel like he'd be another solid casting choice for Hamlin Sr.
That's right. I don't think he's old enough, but yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit of like the age gap wouldn't quite be there, but still.
That's what I'm saying. Carrie Elways.
It'd be kind of like how Sean Connery and Harrison Ford were, 12 years apart from each other? When
exactly.
Yeah,
there you go. Okay, I can buy that logic. Okay. Also, these days, Carrie Elways does wear like the white hair a lot, so I can kind of
right.
Also, would go hand in hand with Howard Hamlin. The white hair, the golden kind of pale locks.
That's what I'm saying.
Regardless,
I always said Robert Redford, but that was obviously never going to happen.
Of course. Anyway, still though, I mean, Paxton Powers. How do you feel about this guy?
I mean, he's very Hamlin-esque. Dragon, I'm not going to lie. I couldn't get it out of my head.
Doesn't help that Patrick Fabian and the DC animation's been in our minds lately.
Right. Exactly. But I like him. I do. I like the fact that he kind of almost takes advantage of Batman in a way. I like that kind of arc, the betraying Batman thing.
So we see Pax. I love his design because he looks so much like his father, and so he's very much his father's son. And he's like, how do they expect us to make a profit if we don't pollute? So Miss Winston comes in. Miss Winston, we've set her up, and there's actually kind of a
JPEG. How do they expect us to make a profit if we don't pollute the brand?
Okay. Okay, just give Chapek a toupee and tell him to lose weight. Okay. Anyway, so Miss Winston here. Now remember, she's always been Derek Powers' assistant. There's actually a little not a headcanon thing. It's kind of like it's kind of a on the down low kind of confirmation later in this episode with her, which we'll get to. So point being, she shows up and she summons Paxton Powers. So the idea he's been exiled. It's kind of like again, there's always been shades of Spider-Man in Batman Beyond. So the idea is that literally with the color green, Blight is kind of Green Goblin. There's there's always been a lot of Norman Osborn, and it's kind of Norman Osborn meets Lex Luthor in Derek Powers. So there's a little bit of Harry Osborn and kind of that fractured father-son dynamic in these two. So the idea is he probably exiled him because he had designs on the company. Basically, this turns into an episode of Succession, folks.
Pretty much.
Anyway, so he's been summoned stateside. You have this.
Hey, Terry, we're the Disgusting Brothers.
So in this case, father and son, but yes.
I could see Terry McGinnis as Tom's kid brother.
Oh God. Guys, we're always going too far with the succession thing.
And then Roman's just like, okay, Tom, even I am saying you're a bad influence on this kid.
You know, Kieran Culkin would go crazy for Terry McGinnis.
Oh my God.
Anyway. So, we have the limo. So we're in the limo, the reunion between father and son. It's a tense dynamic. He's like, what do you got more grunt work for me? And he was wearing the sunglasses. How does acting chairman of the board sound? That sound like grunt work? And he basically tells him it's kind of a puppet master position at first. Basically, you'll do what I say, and then eventually real power will follow. And then he pulls on the old heartstrings, very kind of Willem Dafoe from the first Spider-Man-esque kind of moment here.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Well, maybe a later scene from that, but yes. Maybe a little bit more do what you need to do with it than But yes, so he says, "I need help." But seriously, I love this is my other favorite acting moment of the episode with the Powers family here. I need help, son. Basically he can't face the public. He says, well, what's wrong? And he rips off like a piece of the skin and reveals that it's already cracked through his eyes. And this is the line that gets me with Carrie Ellsworth here. Oh, Dad. And I love that, given what happens later in the episode, but at this moment before that plan formulates, I think there's actual concern. At least either he's manipulating me, the audience member, that much, or I don't know. I feel there's actual concern when he says, "Oh, Dad." It's like that. It's like that realization when a family member you don't like has become sick.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Terry and Bruce, they're in the awesome. Did you see the car again this episode? Yep, it's the upside down Batmobile from the original Batmobile from the animated series. I love that car.
I love how this car just has like a live feed to the boardroom.
Yeah, admittedly, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think
I don't care.
That's what I'm saying. I think
it's very much in the we don't care category at that point.
I mean, the idea is like they have a whole bunch of other members who are like Skyping or like zooming into the
right
thing. So either Bruce set up a camera just for his own benefit, or I mean, I think the idea is it might be a public sort of event, but they didn't animate the camera. I think that's the idea. Anyway, so we have all these protesters, and we have a little bit of exposition in the car here. Where we're just, well, wait, where are the slides? Like, no need for slides. Just look out the window. So
there is one moment in the episode that is.
I know we'll get there. We'll just
Harry, come back! I have a slideshow to show you.
Oh, I wanted to wait to get to it.
All right, I'm sorry. The funny thing is, Terry actually refuses him.
I know. Stop talking about it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're ruining the moment.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
All right, so we exposit that Derek Powers' son, it's Paxton Powers. He's been promoted, and people aren't happy about that, given he wasn't really good at his last job.
I love the kind of the scratch voices here, like, oh my God, I can't believe it, out of the blue.
Yep, all the board member guys, just like, yeah, well, they call this Walla, right?
What is it?
Yeah.
Wawa. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think it's Walla, but it could be. I think it's Walla.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that's what they call like the random background, like improvised background dialogue. Is really just kind of like generally okay. We wanted to focus on the good lines of the episode. Let's just throw a little, this isn't a Telltale game. No one's going to care. It's fine. So, point being, we have this really good line with Terry. He says, "Hey, ask Daddy about his glow boy, would you? I'll see if it comes up." All right. So we're in the boardroom. Bruce settles in, and long story short, Derek Powers announced to the board members, and I guess the world publicly, that he signed proxy of the majority of his stock holdings. Essentially, all the majority of stocks that he holds that technically outnumber Bruce Wayne's have now gone to his son. Now, what that means simply is that Bruce doesn't inherit the company; his son does. His son's calling the shots, and the son's the boss. Now he's transferred all his power to the son. Business. Okay. So. The meeting is then crashed by Mendez and his fishermen. Mendez here, these guys are from Verdeza, and they're basically activists saying like they pollute. Well, again, there's a little twist with Mendez we'll get to later. So the idea is these guys come in and they're upsetting Derek Powers, and starting to get his temper starting to flare up, and the eyes are starting to crack, and everything. And Paxton's trying to calm his father. I love how this scene plays out, don't you?
Well, yeah. He's like dabbing him with the tissue as if that's going to help, and it only makes things worse.
Yeah, but again, might be a little more to what's happening there. But yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so so Derek Powers, he is PO'd, man. And I love that, saying your poison has killed the rivers and crippled our town, our economy, and all this. And they dump these rotting, polluted fish on the table, and that's where Derek Powers just snaps. And I love that during this scene, as like that's kind of building up, Bruce sees something's going on there. He's the only guy. The rest of them are retching.
Yeah, I really like the progression of that, where most of the board is focused at first on the fish.
Yeah.
And we get the audio like, oh, it's disgusting.
Rancid, the stench.
Right. But then progressively more people notice Powers. I thought that was really well done. Like realistic how that would happen.
Of course, Bruce Wayne's the first to look at Powers.
There's, of course.
Something going on there. And of course, Terry also sees this, watching the home screen. And of course, the moment they have like the big reveal here where he's all cracked up and everything, and Terry's like, "Oh my God, Derek, Powers is blight."
Yeah, I like how the audience has been ahead of the characters that whole time. I feel like that's been a fun kind of like game that they've been playing with the writers.
Yeah, absolutely. So Powers, he's grabbing Mendez, and it's like, you want to talk poison? I am poison. he's laughing too. He's completely out of his gourd, just of anger and his radiation, all this sort of stuff. So then this is an awesome moment. Again, admittedly, what we learn about Mendez, it kind of makes this moment just a hair less like, oh man, it would have been, if this guy were actually a nice guy, it would have got a little extra.
Sure.
But regardless, Powers about to fry this guy. Bruce Wayne finally gets to tough talk Derek Powers without any I'm gonna do stuff behind the scenes to you, man. He hits him with the cane. He says, "Let him go." It's like, yeah. And of course, this is great. Like, old man, I've been waiting to do this for years. He's about to fry Bruce Wayne, and then Batman swoops in just at the last second. Again, a daytime Batman. You can only.
I love the cane action that we get.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Just like he throws the blast, and the Batman deflects it, and it just it tears the whole suit. So he's full on Skeletor. Yeah. So I love he tried arresting him and everything too. Oh, my two favorite people, one and the same. What do you know?
That was a very bad attempt at an arrest. I mean, like in retrospect, Terry probably should have known that the handcuffs were just going to melt off of him.
In retrospect, I guess it's the first time that he's ever been able to cuff him anyway. So you're right. You're right. It's he's learning. It's the end of his freshman year. Cut him a break.
Sure.
Okay, he'll get better. Anyway, so he melts through the thing. They have a little fighty full on blight for all the public to see him, and basically he escapes. And we have this really cute moment where before he chases after him, he makes sure Bruce Wayne, like, Mr. Wayne, you okay? He says, yeah, I'm fine, Batman.
That, to me, Dragon, I know we have more dramatic moments later on in the episode, but that, to me, is my great Conroy moment.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a great Conroy moment just in the sense that it's like a great piece of voice acting with like a really dry kind of comic timing to it.
I gotta be honest. I mean, it's a contender between that later one, but I gotta admit I'm hard pressed not to agree with you full heartedly on that. It's like this is I just love that it's a little bit of comedy, but it's also like that.
Also, it's a cool kind of like meta thing where it's like at the end of the first season, Bruce is officially calling him Batman.
Yeah, I know, it's really cute.
Yeah.
Really, it's nice to you have him checking on him, and Bruce Wayne kind of has to call him Batman.
Yeah, right.
But again, it's like Bruce isn't going to be dumb enough to Bruce isn't. We can't do what we do with any other number of characters. We can't have him slip for a moment and start to say Terry, because he would never in a million years would do that. So he's going to absolutely commit to calling him Batman. It's great.
Yeah, but what I love about the performance here, though, is I feel like he almost slipped.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, but we didn't do the thing where he starts to say it out, but you get a sense
right, yeah.
He paused like he wanted to say it, but then he's like, Batman. Anyways, of course, he runs out. Blight has gotten away. All right, so then we're in the cave.
Slideshow time.
Actually, I'm sorry. We're not in the cave. We're actually just in the kind of the Wayne Manor TV room. But still, this is where the big scene is.
Uh-huh.
So Bruce explains essentially the nerve gas was what turned Powers into this. Basically, the events of the pilot turned, of Rebirth, did this to Derek Powers. So this is where we get into the Batman '89 logic. The whole "you made me, I made you." It's getting a little childish after a while.
Right. No, but what's really interesting here and why this is a big scene for me, I think, is this is like the first time that Terry's kind of like realizing that this cycle is a thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Bruce is like so desensitized to
yeah.
it that I don't even think he realizes the impact that it's having on Terry in the moment.
Yeah, I mean
does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I had a slightly different read of it. It's pretty similar though. But yeah, so I love the idea that basically this being the end of the first season, we end on a big milestone for Terry becoming Batman. That he has created the villains for it's Batman creating his own villains, but the next generation version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, admittedly, you could make the argument it's the usual systemic thing of like, Batman is kind of responsible for like Shriek, for example, because he was sent to go after Batman. He has ultimately become a villain, but more so in the direct way, Batman has literally created a villain. And
sure.
Now, for me, it's more Bruce has an
very much kind of like the classic Joker origin where Batman pushed Joker into the vat of chemicals, kind of that sort of flavor.
That's exactly what exactly what it's going for. Yeah,
right.
So, but my read on Bruce though is I think Bruce has it's a very subtle, very interesting reaction here, where Terry's response is very interesting to him, where Terry says "good." And he kind of looks at him for a moment. I love that we're playing it silently on what Bruce is kind of reacting with here. Just kind of looking at him like, good. And he says like, hey, that guy had my father murdered, and he's been hiding from the law ever since. And now everyone can see him for what he is, even in the dark. It's a good line.
Yeah, and that is kind of like, for me, that was a nice little, like, I don't know how much is going to actually get paid off there, if there's going to be more tension going forward with that idea, but like at the very least in this episode, it was a really interesting kind of idea that we were kind of playing with.
Yeah, I mean, the way I kind of read the scene is that Bruce is sympathetic to him about this, but he's also I love how we play Bruce is disquieted about this because he's only once ever had to see someone go through this. Dick Grayson.
Right.
Because Dick Grayson with the whole Tony Zuko thing, because Batman always longed to come up against the murder of his parents, and he never got that opportunity. And Terry has been allotted that both times, like the man who actually essentially pulled the trigger, and Derek, the man who commissioned it. So this is like closure that Bruce is absolutely sympathetic to what Terry's going through right now, but he knows that it's going to steer him down the wrong path. Like he knows this because he saw Dick almost go down that path, and he didn't. Then just Tiki, just so you remember. DG. Now that's who Dick Grayson is.
Thank you.
Sure. So, but yeah. So I don't know. It's just I love that it's Bruce kind of wondering in a moment, like if he were given the chance, how would he react to this? If he were given a chance to go down after Joe Chill, would he go down the vengeful route that Terry? I think Bruce is a little worried Terry's going to go off the deep end with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't think it's wrong, though. He doesn't think it's necessarily he's wrong for feeling the way he does. So I love that we kind of have so much complexity hinted at in a moment.
And that's one of the reasons why this is like up there for me.
Yeah, I know. It's great. Okay. So after that, we see Blight calls Paxton. He's in the lab saying, send my doctors and everything. And Paxton insists on, like, okay, look, the cat's out of the bag. So let's call the hospital. Let's get you some help, some specialists, which of course will be arrested, which is not good for him. He insults him, like in the ways any parent can cut down their child. He says, you've always been a fool. I'll do this on my own. And he's like blasting.
Greg, this is a stupid question, but in Robot Chicken, did they ever play around with the idea of Skeletor having a son?
Well, I mean, they've done a number of Skeletor gags. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I know Skeletor is like a popular character for them.
Skeletor got turned into like a baby once, but not really given a son.
Because I'm just like, the way that this scene plays out for me, I'm just picturing like the Robot Chicken version of this scene with Skeletor basically being like, the son is busy at work. What do you want, crazy supervillain dad? I'm going to take over the realm and destroy He-Man! Dad, you really need help.
Yeah, I don't think they did that, but who knows? Maybe going forward.
It's just kind of like a funny notion I had with
No,
this.
it's a funny notion, but they've not done that. No.
Uh-huh.
All right. At least to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure. I feel like
Just
usually
the
binge.
father being the fuck up to the son.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we
Dad, you
begin.
really need to get over your He-Man obsession.
Look at me. Am I ever gonna get over it? Do I look like I'm gonna get over it anytime soon?
Look at me, and then look at him, and then look back at me.
What do you think I can be, an accountant? The tax is done by the scary skeleton man. Like, that's gonna go well?
Oh my god.
You can't even get into a castle that fits. Right. So we begin to start. So I love that this little phone call here. It starts the misdirect of sympathy for Paxton Powers, where you're thinking, "Oh, his father's being mean to him," and Paxton's trying to help his father, and it's like, "Oh, poor Paxton crying into his piles of money. He's just been elected. He's now the head of Wayne Powers. Let's cry for him a little." Oh, 1%'s not enough. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hey, we're gonna move on. So Batman's on patrol. No concrete radiation trace on him, and then Tiki. This is where we get.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So there's no trace, but Bruce has a hunch, but he can't just tell him while he's out about this hunch.
No, Dragon, he is very excited about the notion of Terry coming back for a slideshow, man.
And you kind of hear it though. I mean, we're joking.
You can hear it.
And again, look, it's kind of serendipitous for just our purposes here, because I mean, we obviously made a running gag of just the fact that this is like, it's kind of playing into the dynamic they build of like, hey, let me show you some stuff, kid.
But then in the season finale, man, Terry's like, fuck that, no more slideshows.
Yeah, he's like that Titan show, F Batman.
Oh my god.
But no. And all just to reground us slightly here. Like, come back to the cave, and I'll explain how. If we had a soundbite for what our running gag is,
Dragon, I feel like that should have been our counter.
Yeah, it should.
Obviously, it's too late now, but just Bruce trying to summon Terry back to the cave for slideshows. That would have been a fun counter.
Yep. Come back to. For season 2, do you want me to do a deep? Do you want to actually start doing that for the next season?
It's up to you, man.
All right, anyway, so come back to the cave. I'll explain how to find him. And then Terry says, well, actually, never mind. We don't need that, because he says we might have a lead. You might want to come to the window for this one. So we look, and we see the bat signal. And Tiki, this is the last time you will ever see the bat signal used in the DCAU.
I believe it, but it was really unexpected and cool to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we see the Paxton Powers. He either bought or he somehow got his hands on the bat signal, got it out of storage.
He's a rich guy. I don't care. I buy it.
No, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that's what he probably did. Somehow he bought it, or he's got to
right.
It out there. So then we just have this. I gotta admit, this makes sense. It's in character and everything. It all works. I'm just saying, just for the guy who adores those Batman Gordon rooftop scenes, the scene kind of hurts a little bit, just a little bit. Just chucks a batarang right into the bat signal and breaks it. Next time, use email. And I was like, "Aw."
I like how he says that in the pure 1999 fashion, where email was the hot thing.
Oh, for sure.
And also, I one of our if that makes sense.
Oh, you might want to say that one again, Tiki.
I feel like that moment's kind of like one of our death of an inanimate object kind of moments.
Agreed, 100%. But it's kind of like a passing of the torch sort of break. It's like an sort of break.
Right.
It's kind of like it's basically a no going back kind of realization. Like, there's no going back. This Batman. But it's also, you know what it is? Just to bring it back to the season finale thing. It's Terry making no, I'm not that Batman. I'm my Batman.
Totally.
It's kind of the symbol for the show. Literally, the symbol of the show. No, I'm not Bruce Wayne. This is a different Batman. All right, so long story short, Paxton explains he has this pinch cell device that essentially absorbs radiation. They're going to adhere a net to it. All they got to do is get Blight into the proximity of this thing, then they'll drain the radiation off and get him some help. So Batman is in a position here where he's on the hunt, and he points out to Bruce, even his own son wants to bring him in. And Bruce Wayne cautions very stoically here, Terry, you might want to slow down. You're sounding a little too vindictive. And I love how Will Friedle's really good. Will Friedle, again, in an underrated episode, he's also really good in this as well, where he's just giving a line where there's like, it's a line that's a little comedic, but obviously it's still a very serious line for him. You know, where he says, I'm just trying to help a guy help his dad. Only in my version, he ends up behind bars.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, in theory, kind of makes sense. And honestly, that's kind of what Paxton was alluding to trying to do before, everything went down.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the big thing here is that there's a bitter irony about this whole situation for Terry, because Powers killed his father, and now it turns into a full circle father-son story with the Powers family.
Sure.
So, I mean, I love that he's picking up on the irony of that, which is adding kind of like a really just like bittersweet kind of angle to the story for him, and the fact of like, well, I mean, a part of Terry wants Powers to die. He really does. But he's by no means do we imply that he wants to kill him or anything. But later on, he will be presented with a choice, which is interesting. Anyway, we'll get there soon. Anyway, so we reveal Paxton Powers is actually a bad son.
A very bad son.
But to be fair, though, Derek Powers is a bad dad.
Indeed.
So we reveal Mendez was working for Paxton Powers the whole time. He was not a disgruntled fisherman. These guys worked for Paxton Powers, and it was a whole plan, assumedly, to manipulate his father into having a meltdown. And long story short, he could get revenge and not have to answer to him like a corporate puppet. Like, basically, he wouldn't have to answer to him at all if he just made him a fugitive.
I'm not going to lie, Dragon, that's a very Succession move.
It is, and it's a good plan, frankly.
Right. Essentially, like, the Succession version of that would basically just be, like,
I'm sorry, Tiki, you're going to have to say it again.
The Succession version of that would be them, maybe trying to give Logan, like, a public meltdown of some kind.
Yeah, you're right. No, absolutely. Yeah, very easily. So, let's see. So,
oh God, no! You could totally see Roman Roy hiring somebody to come into a press conference and just throw dead fish on Logan Roy's table. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
like that episode where the house freaked. Remember?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so point being, Mendez, he warns him that Batman's working with us here, but the moment we try to kill him, Batman's probably going to want to intervene, so kill him too while we're at it. It's like, come on, Paxton, man. That's not nice. Okay, so Bruce Wayne, we learned that his hunch was that Miss Winston, the assistant of Derek Powers, and this is kind of cool. There's some subtext here that the little tie-in comic confirmed, believe it or not. So Miss Winston, Bruce Wayne says he's been picking up on body language, people's body language before he even was a person. So the idea here is that Miss Winston actually has a romantic relationship with Derek Powers. That's kind of the subtext of the thing, which they kind of confirm in the comic, that she actually tried to get revenge. So again, Paxton Powers show up a lot more in the tie-in comic stuff too.
Yeah, that's interesting though. I wish we would have done a little bit more with that.
I know, that's the thing. I think it was more of a retroactive idea. I think that's why, Tiki. I don't know how. I think it was probably the episode came out and then they realized, well, what if we do that with her? Because we like that character design. Let's do something with her. And you kind of set up that Bruce basically picked up the assistant with still being an assistant, but maybe we could take that in romance. So again, the subtext is there and it does somewhat get confirmed in later Blight material. Like she tries to get revenge on Paxton for what he does here in this episode in the comics. So anyway. Take it for what you will. Regardless, she brings him a sandwich in a sub. She brings him a sandwich in a sub.
Somebody call Spielberg.
Yeah. You know the only way you make that better?
What?
Okay. She brings him a sandwich in a sub, and that sandwich was from Subway.
You know Spielberg's submarine restaurant, right? You know of that?
I mean, Spielberg has like a. Oh yeah, didn't his like mother run the sandwich run the restaurant?
I don't know, but it
Because
was
Spielberg's
called.
mother had a restaurant, and I'm trying to remember if that's a sandwich place or not.
Well, it was called Dive, and it was literally like a sandwich place that was themed to being in a submarine.
Is the building actually shaped
Yes.
like? Oh my god, that's amazing! You know, it'd be even better. Oh god, what if? Can you? I don't know if this is true or we'd have to look into this. So, Tiki, imagine this. Spielberg took his shame, which was 1941,
Oh
and
my
he
God.
somehow took the practical sub that they used, and he turned that into the restaurant.
I mean, those restaurants are long gone, but.
Oh, really? They're gone?
Oh, yeah, long gone.
Maybe it's not his mother's restaurant. Maybe it's a different place.
I don't think it's his mother's restaurant. I really don't. It was on the Vegas Strip, Dragon.
Oh, well, there you go. You could have
like it was a highly theme. I think there was one in Times Square, maybe.
Well, are there multiple like?
Yes, it was a franchise. Yes,
I mean literally, like multiple buildings in the shape of submarines.
Yes,
crazy. But again, you have to wonder: is like I'm going to turn this 1941 experience into a positive thing? Sandwiches.
Oh God.
I'm gonna feed
there was someone else who was on. It might have been Katzenberg. Katzenberg might have also been on board with it.
I can just imagine Katzenberg with just that eating grin, just walking in there, says, "I'm gonna have a sandwich at my restaurant."
Okay, it was. I'm sorry, it wasn't in Vegas. It was in L.A.
Well, that makes a lot more sense, Tiki. I mean, it'd be kind of weird that Spielberg's. You know,
and yes, Katzenberg did in fact was in on it.
Okay, one more thing, and then like enough about the sandwich. Just real quick, I love the. So imagine like Jeffrey Katzenberg sauntering in like he has a Planet Hollywood franchise back in the day, just like
that's exactly what they were trying to go for. Dragon in the '90s, everyone wanted like a Planet Hollywood or a Rainforest Cafe. You know, it was a big thing.
We got a movie studio, an animation studio. I got Quibi in the future, but you know what I have right now? Submarine sandwich shop. Guess what? Guess what, Michael? In a submarine.
Oh my God.
And okay, it gets even better.
Just throws his hands up. Well, shit, Jeff, you beat us.
And even better, again, this
and that's what led to Michael Eisner's downfall. He just lost his confidence after that.
No, here's what would happen. Real quick, then we got to get back on.
I know.
Stanley Tucci, who of course is a big foodie. He loves food and everything. It'd be
oh my God, yes.
For him, like going to the sandwich restaurant and shoving it in his face and everything. And then basically Eisner has this thing where his assistant brought him a sandwich. Like, oh man, this is really good. Where'd you get this from? Oh yeah, it's this sub place. Is it in the shape of a submarine? Yes, actually, it is. Have you been there before? No, and now we can't get any more sandwiches from there. Now you've told me that. Oh,
God. All right,
really
all
good
right.
Sandwich.
Get back to it.
Okay. Point being, Derek Powers eating a sandwich.
We could easily do a whole podcast on that restaurant, though. Easily.
Batman, leaves like a little disc with the location and time for the setup at 10 o'clock on the submarine. So we go to the dock submarine. And this is really clever too. The fact that he hid in a submarine because it would mask the radiation. That's the idea there. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. Batman tells Miss Winston to you're not going to want to be here tonight. So it's a little tense that we the audience don't necessarily know how far Terry's going to go here.
Yeah. No, that was definitely one of the cool elements of the episode was that kind of build up, that suspense.
So speaking of suspense, we have this really great sequence. This is kind of Terry getting payback for Warren McGinnis. Him like be really taunting and menacing towards Blight here, and I like.
And this is what I'm saying, Trey. This is like for me the first time that Terry goes full on Batman, like capital B Batman.
And I love that Bruce. I mean, not until things go dangerous and belly up that Bruce is not in this scene at all appropriately. This is Terry's moment. So Batman, using the echoes of the submarine, is taunting Blight into taking the bait and falling into the trap here, where he's using the echoey submarine as Blight's like searching the rooms and destroying like rooms of the sub, making it go off balance and everything, all these radiation blasts and everything. saying, like, "I just want to be left alone." Well, I can't do that. There are laws about radioactive waste. So basically, and also he says, besides, this is personal. And then we get to the big meat and potatoes. This is a real full 89 here. This is almost full 89 here. This is like, who are you? You really want to know? And this is a shocking moment if you're watching it for the first time too, where he's with the fact that Terry kind of went.
I was on the edge of my seat, and honestly, Dragon, I got to tell you, one of the big reasons why I am disappointed in the fact that we don't get a follow up to Blight is the fact that, like, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, season 2, we got to build up to Blight actually finding out who he is.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, it was big, and I do like the whole. This does feel like a Norman Osborn thing, by the way. Like, you got to be more specific, kid.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And so this is serious. I just love like what Will Friedle's doing in this scene. Though it gets really, what do you like? Yes, this is. And the door finally opens after he's let him down. He's finally facing him. He walks out, and it's so funny. But this has to. I wonder if this is like a meta thing too, just given the fact that they have Carrie Elways in this episode. Little Princess Bride, you killed my father.
a little bit, yeah, yeah.
But it's seriously a good dramatic moment for him, though. He's saying legitimately saying, "You killed my father," and the whole like, do you know how little that narrows it down? Well, that's all you get. Captain on the bridge. So then we have like the pincer cell thing activates, and he's trapped and getting the radiation sucked from him, and then Paxton monologues.
Yup.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying that's kind of every time the bad guy monologues, you kind of have to say it, and he's monologuing.
Oh, the Incredibles! You just called out so many things with superheroes.
It's delightful. No capes and monologuing. You got me monologuing, you sly dog. Anyway, so he calls out his father, who never would have given him any power, and the only way to get power from what he taught him is to seize it. So ironically, he's seizing as his father's seizing up right now from the radiation drain. He's seizing it. He gets it. Okay, folks, he gets it.
God.
Anyway, so Powers is having the radiation sucked from him, and then he dials it to 11. He goes the spinal tap approach. He fully dials it up.
Yeah, and I don't know, Dragon. Honestly, I almost kind of feel like this moment should have been a bigger deal than it was, because I was like, okay, like I see what they're doing here, and it's really compelling. It's basically like that badly, and he kind of sees the error of his ways, and he sees how close he got to that point. And I gotta be honest with you, Dragon, I don't really feel like we punctuate that as well as we could. Do you agree at all?
Tiki, I absolutely understand your thought process there, and the thought does cross my mind, but I kind of made peace with it in this way, okay? It kind of comes down to this for me. You're right. It does feel instinctively that we should have a pause before Terry speaks out against it. I think we should have more of a pause. However, the fact that Terry does not, from the beginning, he said he wanted him behind bars. It does feel that while Terry is relishing the vindictiveness that Bruce warned him about, which essentially is the moral here of like, if you get vindictive, Terry made a deal with Paxton Powers, which Batman never would have really made. Only Terry making this deal with a criminal to do this, it feels off, and it's like it's a warning of Terry going up to the line. But the fact that when he sees that as not right, he sees he's actually going to try and kill his father, which already is kind of perverse and bittersweet, given that that Derek Powers killed his father, and he's seeing the son try to kill the father, and the fact it's his worst enemy, who this is all happening with him.
Like, oh God, I'm caught in a bizarre revenge love triangle.
So it's a good wake-up call for Terry, but by the same token, the fact that he speaks up as fast as he does, it's like you'll kill him. I didn't agree to this. It's the fact that Bruce chose well, or at least Bruce allowing this kid to keep the suit was a good decision. And I think that's kind of that's how I reconcile it.
I feel like there should have been some sort of moment with Bruce, even if it was just like a cutaway reaction shot or something.
I agree, but we don't want Bruce in the scene to take away from Terry having.
Yeah,
You're right.
no,
You're
I
right. We
hear
are.
you. I hear you. It just, I don't know. It felt like it would have been appropriate.
I don't think you're
It's kind of
wrong, but
like
I
a
don't think
very quick, like, that's my boy reaction.
possibly. It's a good point. I don't know. Something may have been missing. You're not wrong, but I don't know quite what we would have done to really full on like punctuate in a way that wouldn't have disrupted like the action, so to speak. So anyway, so of course Batman speaks out against it. I love that he's kind of playing devil's advocate here. You want this as much as I do. So if we had maybe that pause, like kind of there, like no, I would never agreed. You say you were going to help him. I lied. So then Mendez is firing at Batman. He's hitting the machine, and then Batarang uses the old. This is a great Batman move here. He fires a Batarang at the fire extinguisher.
Classic Batman move. Classic Batman move.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you how many. I love that's a move you can do in the Arkham games, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, you can always do that. Every time you see a fire extinguisher in the Arkham games, you can throw a battery at it. Anyway, so he gut punches the henchman here, and then Derek Powers wakes up because the machine's damaged now. He is furious. Like, we've been building up his temper throughout the whole season, and my God, this is the angriest that we've seen him. He's like Father from Codename Kids Next Door.
Yeah, a little bit.
Now you've made me angry. Very angry. So, big radiation waves throwing all over the place, and just going crazy. And this is where Bruce finally speaks. And Tiki, we get a moment here. Terry, what's going on in there? The radiation's off the scale. But that brings our McGinnis / Terry counter to 6.
6? Okay. We're getting up.
By the end of season 1, we're at 6.
All right.
Okay, so let's see. So Powers here, he's going. Powers is going critical, and then we have get out of there now. So we do well. We're not counting it, but we have a get out of there now as well. So Powers literally goes critical here. Batman saves the henchman. Very nice. He grabs him and takes him out of the sub. Paxton fled for his life like a coward. The coward that wants to live, so I can't fault him too much. But still, it's like you caused that situation, man. You dirtbag. So the sub sinks. Then we have this great ending that I love so much because it's a straight pull from Batman the Animated Series. It's like the ending of the Riddler episode from Batman the Animated Series. It's great. Batman visits Paxton in the aftermath as the news says, "Oh yeah, there was like a big blight was spotted in a submarine, and this happened, and they're still searching for his body." Paxton's like the new head of Wayne Powers, and Batman comes in saying, You've made a bad enemy tonight. Oh, what are you going to do? Take that mask off and go up against me in trial or something?" He says, "Oh, not me. I'm the least of your worries." And the news goes on to say, "We haven't found Derek Powers' body yet."
Yeah, again, Dragon, I'm a little disappointed that we're not going to find Derek Powers' body in this series, at least. That's a little disappointing.
I mean, if you want it, I know this won't bring you a lot of comfort. It's the fact that while we don't see it in animation, again, there's always been the hope that we're gonna have a comeback of Batman the Animated, of Batman Beyond, in kind of like an animated movie or something. Because if we can't get in live action, at the very least, we could do a continuation or something in animation, like in a movie. Because Beyond, obviously, Return of the Joker, which was wonderful and lauded. It's some of the hope is they would adapt some of these animated tie-in comics. Essentially the first of which is Blight's return when he's wearing like this.
Yeah, I could totally see them doing a whole movie just based on him, especially with how this episode ends out.
So I mean, it was always anyway. So we have this great ending where it says like he melted in the sub. Sure, he did. Now, there you go. There's that Batman the Animated Series ending of like, how much is a good night's sleep worth? Like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah.
So yeah, like I said, Dragon, I really, really enjoy the kind of the season finale element to this. It's a nice kind of breath of fresh air. It feels like, we're not only wrapping up a lot of the themes of the first season, but it's also kind of, there were a couple milestones for Terry in his evolution to full on becoming Batman. So really, really enjoyed this one a lot. Probably in my top 3 of the season.
Okay, now, before I get my final thoughts, I just want to caution you again. Don't get used to Batman Beyond having season finales.
I know you warned me. I know.
I don't know. I have to wonder if the network ran the riot act or not over that or not, because I think they played. I think they played enough where again you can watch it even out of out of order, and you're still like, okay, well, there's again because we kind of say Blight's like missing, so technically, if someone were not really paying attention, like okay, it's a Blight episode.
I'll go ahead. I'll gladly take this as the one miracle exception that we have. So.
Yeah. So I mean, I've always loved this episode. Never gets talked about enough. I love just looking back on just the title itself, Ascension. I love that it's about many things. Again, it's kind of kind of Terry, ascending into being a Batman in his own right. It's about what Paxton Powers does to ascend to the power of being the chairman of the board, and like what he does to bring down his father, and the fact that Blight is kind of ascending and kind of like he basically goes full supernova in terms of a nuclear meltdown in that sub. So he's ascending in terms of radiation levels. So I like that and again, also just in terms of like ending season 1, you kind of want Ascension so Batman can kind of fly on his own, so to speak, and kind of an adventure. It's really personal for him, bringing it back to the pilot. So all that's really with like the guidance of Bruce Wayne versus like just being in Bruce Wayne's shadows. All that's great. It's a very solid episode. It gets a lot done. Again, if you're going to do a send-off for Blight, it's a pretty good send-off.
Yep. All right. So next up, we have finally turned the page to season 2. So go ahead and tease up what we have in store.
The splicing craze turned crazy. Ace the Bat Hound in action. Man-Bat Beyond. Can Batman put an end to Chimera before it alters more of Gotham's DNA? Or will Neo Gotham become Neo Zootopia? Tune in next time to find out. Same animated bat time, same animated bat place.
On the next visit to Batcave Beyond with Splicers.
Enough about the sandwich.